The statistics are clear. Tobacco use continues to be the leading preventable cause of premature death and disease in Canada.
You're listening to State of Vape in Canada.
If this bill passes, you're going to be going back to your old job at McDonald's.
Email us at stateofvapeshow@gmail.com. Who is Bill S-5 for? Who's it designed to protect? Youth? Picking up vaping and moving to smoking? Does it really aim to protect the 115,000 people who picked up smoking last year? Who's it gonna protect? We know the consequences from cigarettes. We know, and they're very real. So, Bill S-5 is coming with a flavor ban. You cannot compare vaping to smoking anymore. Your e-juices need to be approved by the health minister by a process that has yet to be defined.
You're going to be going back to your old job at McDonald's.
And stiff penalties for not following these rules. And these penalties, only tobacco can afford these kinds of penalties. Nobody else can afford to pay these hefty hundreds of $1,000 penalties.
You're going to be going back to your old job at McDonald's.
That's on the table right now with Bill S-5.
Get your shit together, Canada.
This week, we have a special guest with us. I'd like to welcome Maria Papayano from the Ecig Flavourium. Maria, thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, you're very welcome, John. It's a pleasure.
Thank you again. And would it be possible for you to take a few minutes, maybe, tell us how you got into e-cigarettes, your involvement with the vaping community, and some of the advocacy work that I've seen you've been doing?
Okay, so I think it was in 2010, my lovely mother-in-law, she was a media reader for the Ministry of Environment here in Ontario. And so part of her job was to look at all this stuff that was coming across her desk. And she kept coming up with these articles about electronic cigarettes. So she was 67 at the time, and she just showed up one day and said, "You have to find these, but I'm buying them for us." So we ended up going to, and believe it or not, it wasn't some kid that introduced us to vaping. It was a senior citizen. So this is my experience. So we went off to a flea market and found them, and they were really kind of hidden and hard to find. And then we found these little cigarette things, and we started using them. And you know what? It was hard because the draw wasn't perfect, but I loved the taste. And when I would go to smoke a cigarette after that, it was like something clicked that, you know how Oprah says, if you know better, you do better? I tasted better, so I knew better. So from then, we were just kind of always after the chase to get that perfect electronic cigarette, which what we called them at the time. So we went and we searched out the manufacturer, or we searched out the importer, and we used to go up to his house in the middle of, I got lost 3 times going there. And after that, we would order e-liquid from China, and then one day we ordered e-liquid from China, and it was a completely different product. So we're like, yeah, this can't happen. These are so drastically different.
So this was before it actually was available in stores, and you were just trying to get your hands on it? Okay, cool.
Yeah. So then we would go to the Shoppers Drug Mart and buy syringes, and I would be like, a thick gauge, please. The thicker the gauge, the better, because I needed to get that e-liquid into these little cartomizers.
Right.
After that, we were in the United States and in Michigan, and we found a vape store, and I think this was 2012. And so then we kind of were introduced to this other form, and then we found like a shop, Happy Vapor, Jack Weinberg's shop in out in Vaughan.
Right.
I think it's in Vaughan, just up north of the city. And so we started vaping that, and it wasn't until 2013. Actually, no. And like and then we found one that was a little bit closer to us. And the experience there was sort of like, you are so lucky. Customer service was reversed, for lack of a better word. So I try and share this with people now. We were grateful that the shop was open. It wasn't that the shop owner was grateful that we chose his establishment, because he knew we didn't have that many choices.
Right. So it's like he had a monopoly. He's like, you're lucky that I'm here to serve you today.
Yeah, because he like the closest vape shop, and I put that in quotation marks at the time, was probably 20 kilometers away. So trying to figure this out, and it was so underground and it was so like under the radar, right? Because there was a fear associated with it. I was completely oblivious to any fear that someone would have, by the way. So in 2013, my husband and myself, Dave, we went to California and we did the Coast Drive. And it was during that Coast Drive that we kept stopping into vape shops. And this was in 2013. And we found something that we didn't have here in Toronto. We found a community. So we would go into these shops and we would like see people sitting there talking, and they showed us what a build was. And they're like, man, this is like 6 milligrams of nicotine. And like we were still using 18 because we had the smaller tanks and stuff. So, and it was actually in this shop called Ecig City in Laguna Beach that we met this young man. And he's probably like 19 or 20 years old. And his dad opened this shop, not because he needed a new business venture, but because he wanted to save lives. He believed, in Laguna Beach, these are people who have like multi-million dollar homes and very wealthy people, that he believed that this saves lives. And me and Dave took that to heart. And as we were going through all these vape shops along the coast, it was what the theme was consistent. We're here to help. Thank you for coming in. This is our passion. You know what? We're saving a life.
Right.
So when we came back to Toronto, we just said, why don't we just do it? Why don't we just do what they did there? We'll have a place where people can test things. We're going to show everything, so it's not going to be hidden in a closet. We're going to let everything out. And in 2013, after we came back from California, we opened the Ecig Flavourium without a clue of the path that it will take us on. So needless to say, 3+ years later, I have, through vaping, let's not forget, we've saved thousands of lives because people are no longer smoking. Through vaping, we've learned to understand what it's like to fight government regulations. We've learned what it takes to get the media's attention. We've learned how to lobby with our politicians. We've learned how to embrace our community. And at the same time, we've learned how important our role is in this community, where our shops are. I mean, no other job would have given me that. No other job would have given me the opportunity to figure out all these things. Am I doing the right thing? Only time's going to tell. All I know is if I believe in what I'm doing, I can follow it through with 100% passion, but I'm always willing to listen. I'm always willing to learn, and I'm always willing to try what people suggest.
That reminds me a bit of the experience that I had too. When I first, it was a friend who gave me a CE5. And I was vaping that at 1.8 and 18 milligrams because I was smoking a pack a day for 25 years. And I tried the patch. I tried cold turkey. I didn't want to try Chantix with all of its side effects and possibility that I would become suicidal. So I said, no, maybe not that one. But e-cigarette was the only thing that worked. It's been 2 years that I haven't been smoking. And when I first quit, I brought my sister along. She was smoking for about 25 years. We opened a vape shop together with the intent of helping other people to stop smoking. It was the same exact goal, right? So I can totally relate to the story that you've just shared with us.
My understanding is that data from scientific studies of vaping and the health effects of vaping is still emerging.
one of the aspects that they keep bringing up is that the science is emerging, that it's not, that we're not quite too sure yet if it's safer than smoking. And so they keep questioning if vaping really should be encouraged as a harm reduction tool while science is emerging. So to you, do you think we have the science available right now to say that it is safer, that we should use it as a tool, or is the government right to question it and be cautious before implementing any kind of free-for-all in the vaping industry?
I learned something last week and I found this really interesting. There's someone out there, she's doing her PhD, and one of the subject matters that she's focusing on is on vaping, and she's worked with groups right across this world. And she made a comment, and it stuck with me. We're debating, the thing is that the scientists themselves are not debating whether this is 95% healthier or not. The debate is if it's 95% or 99.9. So when you actually understand what the scientists are debating and seeing what we are forced to debate, we need to change that conversation. You understand, you can see the differences. If the debate is between 95 and 99 versus a debate where our politicians are having that 95 and nothing, there's a huge difference. So I think it's time that we start encouraging people to look at actually what the scientists are debating and bring that back to our politicians and bring that back to the conversations we're having.
And what do we do when they say, yeah, but there's an absence of long-term studies? So great, it's 95% healthier, but you don't know the long-term. So they often revoke that as a reason.
And I say that no, absolutely. And neither do you. And are you willing to risk the lives of people? Because I am. Are you willing to risk the lives?
Because I have read from the Royal College of Physicians, apparently that 95% healthier also includes long-term risks comparative to smoking. Mm-hmm. So we know that 30 years down the road, the impact will be 95%, at least 95% healthier. Yeah. So I guess that's what I'd like to bring to the question on long-term negative impacts it might have.
I haven't, to be honest with you, I haven't had deep conversations with someone that could understand and explain that to me with confidence based on research. But I think David Sweener has the best thing, is that it's saying that if you compare smoking and vaping to juggling grenades and oranges, it doesn't have the same risk.
Right.
David Sweener's like a hero in the Canadian vaping world. He's a very smart man.
You're listening to State of Vape in Canada. One of the things, we talk about benefits, right? And you say for yourself, you started vaping and you started already feeling better, mm-hmm. right? I think that's the word you used. I had childhood asthma all my life. I would go to sleep. I'm allergic to dust mites, and it would trigger my asthma at night and I have to take my Ventolin pump. I haven't taken it in 2 years.
Okay, so John, how about this? Think about it this way. I'm going to throw something at you, and I always say this to people. Who has the most to lose by you not using Ventolin? My husband, Dave, used to buy inhalers every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Okay, so think about how much they cost, right? Let's say $14, $15, $20 every 3 weeks. Since he started vaping, especially these last 3 years, he's gone from those every 3 weeks to every 6 months.
Yeah.
A single individual. It makes you, if you look at that and you think that and you multiply it by the number of people who were in that same state, who does have the most to lose?
Pharma. The Quebec government had a campaign to quit smoking. I think it was this month. And there's absolutely no mention of vaping in their Facebook groups. It's all about using either cold turkey or using a patch or some kind of approved pharma.
Well, they can't break their own laws they wrote.
Right. So the next thing I wanted to ask you is, we see the Canadian government telling us at first, or at least we had the impression in the community that it would be legislated differently, but we see that, they're just lumping it in with smoking, just like many other districts have done in Canada and in the US. And now they're coming to a point where they're saying, these flavors are mimicking the strategies tobacco companies have done in the past with their flavored tobacco. How do you think a flavor ban might affect smokers and individuals who might have already switched to vaping? I know that's a loaded question.
That is a loaded question. I think we should be looking at this. How will a flavor ban? So we have to go. I know you're going to ask me this question next, but the market approval. I think this question and the market approval question go hand in hand.
Yeah.
Do you want to know why?
Of course.
There's a two-tiered market approval process. Mm-hmm. One that is affordable, one that's not affordable. That's and again, that's me guessing, but I'm just assuming. If you go through the pharma approval, confectionaries and candies are on the list of you can actually use them in your flavors.
Oh, okay.
So when we have this two-tier system, what's happening is, you know what? We're not actually banning flavors, but we're going to ask you to go through this approval process. And they haven't set out about this two-tier approval process, but I think it's utter bullshit. It's a way to weed us out. It's a way from saying that, you know what, all we are is a test market for big tobacco, and this is all we've done for the last 5 years. From the first shop that opened up to today, we are nothing more than a test market for big tobacco and big pharma. There is a reason why that exception is in that bill. And if we don't start fighting back, and if we don't start asking these really hard questions, we're just going to get steamrolled as we have been right now. You know what? If you look at that bill and it talks about that flavor ban, it does go against everything they said to us. But if you look deeper into that bill and look at that exception, they've told us this all along. So they're not saying that we're banning flavors. They're saying if you go through process A, you can have flavors. If you go through process B, you can't have flavors. If you go through process A, you could talk about the benefits. If you go through process B, you can't. The difference is there are two processes. So there's two tiers. So it's us and them. And at the end of the day, we can't work with that.
You're listening to State of Vaping Canada. It just seems so complicated, really. Very complicated. And hard for the average person to understand. What do you think it means to a customer visiting in a shop in the future?
Let's say it goes as written. Let's just read the bill as written and make the exception. If it's not written in there, we can't make an assumption, right? So as it's written, that means that someone coming into our shops here in Toronto will have access to a limited amount of stuff on my shelf. Do I know how much I can talk about it? No, so I'm not even going to be able to talk about it. But they're not going to have choice. They're not going to be able to create something that is custom to their needs. Vaping is a personal experience. Vaping is subjective to taste. Vaping is about not smoking. And what we say is whatever we can do to help you smoke. People ask me what my most popular flavor is. I tell them it doesn't matter because you are not the same as the person before me. So we go through those flavors. So someone who enjoys a very sweet vape won't necessarily like, a bitter coffee. But someone is craving that bitter coffee because that's the craving their body asks for. Then I have that bitter coffee for them. And they're not going to enjoy the sweetness of another vape.
I've practically forgotten what that experience is like since we can't taste it anymore. In Quebec, it's like Russian roulette when they're buying juices. You hope that the bottle they bought will satisfy them because they can't taste it beforehand.
So what Quebec did to you guys is said, I am going to change your business model. And that's what they did. And the government has chosen to change the vaping industry's business model. Our business model from the start, and I think in Canada, has been about customer experience. It was solely focused on the customer. Let's help the customer do this. Let's have a conversation. Let's be part of this customer's experience. And we want the customer to feel connected to us as the person who gave them back their life. In Quebec, they took away your business model, and it breaks my heart because they came in and said, it is not business as usual. You can't do this. We think you're wrong. We're the government, so we're going to change it. And this is what this bill is going to do to the rest of Canada.
And I don't know if you, because I'm sure as a company, you probably look at if customers come back, and before the flavor ban, because it's difficult to switch someone to vaping. It's not as easy. It's easy for some people, more difficult for others. But I do know that in my business, half of the people would come back because they would have all sorts of different struggles, even after tasting the liquid. It could be all sorts of reasons why they were unable to switch. So, yeah. So now that is out of the question. Now that number, it'd be really interesting for me to go back and see, well, did that number drop now? And are only 20% of my customers coming back because I'm playing Russian roulette trying to figure out the right combination for them? So it's actually not, it's working against the health of these people who are making genuine efforts to stop smoking.
I agree.
But to come back on that, which is something that we're already dealing with in Quebec, is the fact that they're looking at making sure that the population, companies, and individuals would not be allowed to compare vaping to smoking. So customer walks in the shop, says, are they safer? You can't say if it's safer. You say, who knows what you can say. You could say, well, I can't attest to the benefits or, if any, to e-cigarettes, but you can choose one and buy one. Mm-hmm. Does that infringe on our constitutional right to health and freedom and speech?
According to the Canadian,
because to me it does.
According to the Canadian Constitution Foundation, it does. According to multiple legal opinions, it does. And I kind of think that the play nice. They tried to do this in Ontario too. I think the fact that the Canadian government is going back and is, it breaks my heart because I love Justin Trudeau. And I love what the Liberals do. And thankfully, we have a wonderful MP in one of our locations here. They platformed on the Harper government muzzling scientists. And what they've done is the exact same thing through this bill at an arm's length. They've asked us not to share scientific information, even scientific information created by Canadians, paid for by our government. That is the scariest part of this whole thing. The other scariest part of this whole thing, why don't we look at countries that we have sanctions against and look at their vaping laws and look how similar they are. So all of a sudden, we're a country that is judging other countries for certain sanctions, and we're placing sanctions on them. And our Canadian government is using or is following those same protocols when it comes to vaping.
Absolutely.
That's another issue that I have. So our Canadian government needs to be accountable. And the thing is that we are not holding them accountable at this point. We need to continue reaching out to our MPs as citizens, as business owners. We have that right. No one can tell you not to call a member of parliament. No one can tell you what your heart tells you to do to fight this is wrong. Unless the only way I'm not going to agree with someone's strategy is if they tell me they want tougher regulations.
Right, or they want to somehow support tobacco efforts or,
Exactly. As long as your goal is the same as mine, I am going to be your cheerleader and cheer you on to do what you want. I'm not going to judge your path to get there.
Very well said.
That is irrelevant to me because if I focus my fight on saying you're doing things the wrong way, mm-hmm. I have wasted that energy. I should be fighting the government, not my colleague.
And we've had a lot of infighting in Canada. I mean, I think the actual consumer vapor groups are doing a lot more than some of the other groups, but everybody is, we've had our share of infighting, and we've seen it this week. And rather than start talking about them specifically, because I'd rather us focus on what we can do rather than what other people are doing. What might happen if people start fighting themselves? What is your take on all the infighting we've seen?
You know what? If people are this is honestly, I've been accused of propaganda, infighting, all this other stuff. We have to look at what people are actually fighting about. Are they fighting about the goal? Because if people are fighting, if they're fighting about saying your goal and your outcome is not the same and it's not beneficial to vaping, then I say fight them, because that's the thing. But if someone is fighting about, I don't like your path that you're taking, I don't like the fact that you're doing this, you should be doing that, I say mind your own business, focus on the goal, let them either fail or succeed, because that energy you're trying to do to stop them is wasteful and can be contributed into your decision making. Be confident in the choices that you're making, because advocacy is personal as well. Be confident in the choices that you're making to get to the end goal, and nothing else should matter. You don't need 30 people following you. You just need you following you.
The power of one.
If someone has an idea to go towards this in a different way, I think this idea should be known, and I think that if you don't agree with this idea that person is doing, congratulate them. Let them know that I can't support this because you don't have my buy-in, but I understand that it's for the same goal, and I want you to succeed, because we need success. We need wins. We don't need a winner. We need wins.
And infighting is a gift to the government.
It's a gift to us.
To us?
Because if we don't think about it, when someone argues your point, right? Say me and you have point A and point B. When someone argues your point, what can you get out of that that's positive? You can get a reassurance on what you believe in, or you can get your mind open to another option. So you can consider it a wasted time, or you can find the gift in it, and you can take that information and move forward. The government... Right,
but But not on the point where, let's say, if everybody's fighting in the interest of, of the goal of vaping as a harm reduction, and you're just fighting the path, like you said before. If the argument is the path, I'm not trying to say that we shouldn't have these arguments. We should discuss them. But at the end of the day, if you turn around and say, well, my way is better. That is what I'm trying to say is...
Then you know what I would say to that person if someone says to me, my way is better? I would say, go for it. And I hope it is, and I hope you get the win. Because I don't care who wins. I don't care what way is better. I just know that we're not doing enough ways. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yep.
We don't have enough ways. We don't have enough diversity in our battle. We don't have enough different paths to go on. We use this word divide, but we forget sometimes when things divide, they grow stronger independently.
You're listening to State of Vaping Canada. This week, we have a special guest with us. Maria Papayano from the Ecig Flavourium. So what are the ways that you've seen or that you've tried? I think you have been reaching out to a lot of your MPs and trying to get meetings with them.
I've been very successful in getting meetings with my local MP. The only reason being is that, and I've said this before, I've been lobbying him about vaping from the day his father showed up at my door to ask for his vote.
Right.
So before the elections happened in 2015. Summer of 2015, I met Nate's dad. I had a phone call conversation with Nate. The day after he got elected, I sent him an email asking him about the HESA report and reminding him of his commitment to me and my vote. I then followed up. I have probably 80 emails. And when I met with them last week, and I brought in Amelia with me because I thought, oh, well, I got someone who knows more than I do, so why not join them? And Amelia's approach is very vastly different than my approach. She's more, more of the theory of, science, and more of the theory of, scholarly, where I'm more of like, this sucks. Like, I'm more of a fighter. But I brought her in there because two approaches works beautifully. And when I went in there, they told me that you have lobbied us more than anyone else. You are the only person lobbying us on this, but you have been consistent. So the thing is because someone rejects me on the first try does not mean that I've given up. You keep going at it. You approach from one angle to the other, to the other, to the other. You research your MP. I know that my MP where I live is a small business advocate, so I'm going to implore on those things. I know that my MP here in the Beaches, where one of our shops is, he's a huge harm reduction person. He's a vegan. He worked at an organization like CCF on the East Coast. So I'm going to use his experience, his backing, his information on his wiki page. I also know that my other MP downtown is the Minister of Finance. So I'm going to talk to him as in his business sense. If we research who we are trying to lobby, and those are only 3 people. But I wrote to Senator Cordy, I think that was her name, Senator Cordy. Yeah. I just didn't write any, she's never responded to me. I didn't write an email telling her what she said was wrong. I wrote an email that her process was wrong. I wrote an email to her saying that, is this your thesis? I researched who she was. I knew that she had a strong background in harm reduction because she was part of a committee that put out a report in 2012 on harm reduction. I quoted her words that were inconsistent with what she stated in Senate.
Did she respond at all to that?
No, but she did post up a picture of her and the lobbyist for tobacco the next day, which to me showed, thing. Like, what I'm trying to say is that, instead of approaching from, this is my argument, how can I make my argument fit into the person's ethos, their background, their experience? Because the things that we do shape us and who we are and what we stand for. And if we can find inways into those little places and find our little nooks in there that, if she is a scholar, then there's a reason, anyway, sorry, I'm just digressing.
Yeah.
But that's my approach. And so infighting is infighting. It's always going to happen. The government infights. Jesus, they're trying to get rid of a senator right now. And you know what the best part of that part was? The senator that the senators tried to get out?
A scandal with some
the
underage.
Team, yeah.
Right,
you know what the best part was? They held them accountable on Twitter. Do you know what that means for us? Is that if they are going to set the standard of accountability on Twitter, we have every right, and they've opened the door to allow us to hold them accountable in that format.
So it's worth it for us to make our voices heard. Anything you do, any attempt at contacting people or spreading the message is worth it.
I think so. I don't see why. Do you know what this week is, John?
This week is spring. It wasn't spring yesterday?
It's Greek Independence Day.
Greek Independence Day.
March 25th. And that's when a small group of people fought for the freedoms of all Greeks.
Right.
After how many years of being enslaved? And I just think is that if I have a little bit of chutzpah from my ancestors, and if we try everything we can fight this too. I know there's going to be so many people who disagree with me, and that's okay.
I sometimes worry about how long drawn out the fight might be, because if we give a couple of scenarios, let's say we advocate and we're successful before the bill goes in, and so the laws are passed in a way that we can live with. That would be ideal scenario, right? That it comes out, or it's canceled, delayed, or something like that. But let's say it does go in, and it does include a lot of the things that we feared. We might find ourselves 2-3 years of battling in the courts, go back and forth trying to defend our rights and freedoms. And by then, the damage would have been done to the industry. It would have been handed to tobacco already. So that's what concerns me, because I don't want to be a pessimist, but I'd prefer to be optimistic about it. But I have this feeling that the government already made up their mind that it's already going to be a bad situation for the vaping industry. And how are we going to pull each other up if there's no one left?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Are you willing to put all your eggs in one basket?
Of course not. No.
I'm just saying. So, you know what? If we focus on using terms like infighting or no solidarity, what we do is we take away from the efforts of everybody. And we actually lose those efforts. We lose the great things of this whole thing of we're focusing on AQV and CVA fighting. If we actually took away the fighting part from that sentence and we looked at what CVA is trying to do and what AQV is going to do, and not tell them to work together, I don't care what they do. All I care is that they're trying to get this done, and they're doing what they think is best. And we will see what will happen. But I just hope there's a third person in there getting involved and saying, you know what, I have another idea. Let me try this way. At this point, Quebec is in the hands of legal.
Yeah, we're already in the...
You're in the hands of legal. And the thing is the two legal opinions, from my understanding, this is very basic, need to come together. And
very similar to... Yeah. They're very similar. Yeah.
And need to come together. What we're not aware of is what type of negotiations and what kind of asks each group is giving the other. So that's where the lack of information that we have is missing. So remember, there's his side, her side, and the truth. There's a piece of this puzzle that is missing. And the thing is I don't want to take my energy to go find that piece of puzzle. I just want to go write a petition and see where that takes us.
And that is a new thing that you've started to...
No, I'm not doing it. That's Brendan and Wendy.
Oh.
I'm just helping.
Oh. Right. And I'm looking forward to seeing the developments on that and see how far it goes.
I know. I'm just trying to... my only role in that is to get a senator to present in the Senate. That's my role in that one.
Well, I encourage you. I'm encouraged by the stuff that you've been doing. And as a matter of fact, I think it served to inspire us a little bit. And because for the last year, we haven't done much. You know, we figured, well, we're in court here in Quebec, so we'll just wait to see the outcome. And ever since we've been seeing all of this stuff happening in Toronto, it has pushed us to also meet with or at least request that we meet with our local MPs and talk to them.
Keep doing it. And keep doing it. Just keep going out there. Your voice is important.
And this whole podcast is like our vape shop, born out of smokers who want everybody else to have a chance at a healthier life. So we started this. Dimi was nice enough to pick it up and put it on his radio network. And now we have a platform where we can share our thoughts with everyone in Canada.
I think it's amazing. You know what? That's because you have a thought. Your ideas matter. Your actions matter. Your actions get us one step closer to our goal. Everybody is important, and we need to own that. What am I doing is right? I have no idea. Do you want to know why? I have no history. There is no history to tell me if what I'm doing is right. This is the first time ever that vaping has been regulated on a federal level. This is an entirely new landscape. This is entirely new.
So I guess some mistakes are going to happen.
Absolutely.
If people are going to write letters, they're probably going to, not be perfect because we're not politicians, right? We're regular people.
You know what? Take away the regular and say we are voters.
Right.
There are 8 elections happening across Canada. And if someone thinks that they don't have the power to ensure that they don't have the power to lobby during those elections, they are mistakenly wrong. So I'm going to tell each and actually every person out there, if there's a by-election happening in your riding, find out, call them all up, and start getting an ally. It's not too late. throw vapor support. I guarantee you they will listen. They want votes. We give politicians way too much power.
Absolutely.
Because the one thing that we have is their job security in our hands.
Vaping is not smoking.
Exactly.
Shouldn't be in that bill to begin with. And with that, Maria, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, no problem.
Maybe I'll have you again in the future. If there's any message you want, you can reach out to us and we'll be glad to have you back.
Okay. All I just want to say is just trying.
Yes.
There is no failure in trying. There's failure in not trying.
Our voices need to be heard.
Yes. They're all important. Oh, John, I'm so happy you called me on here.
Hoping that people are enjoying it and actually finding value in listening to these shows. Because I do intend on continuing doing them, and hopefully we'll get other guests that could share as well as you did today with all of the community in Canada. And hopefully we'll fight this bill and get something that's just and fair for everyone.
Exactly. Let's get this bill thrown out of Senate and make them work hard again.
Thank you very much, Maria. If I'm in Toronto, I'll pass by your shop, and if you're there, I'll say hi.
Okay, fabulous. Bye, John.